Hey guys, welcome back to the Kool-Aid Podcast. Welcome back to another video. On today's video, guys, we're going to be looking at Raphinha because he recently spoke out and he spoke about a wide range of Barcelona topics, talking about Lamine Yamal, his contract extension, his dream of retiring at Barcelona, his potential future, everything under the radar. Raphinha, he has talked about it. We're going to be looking at some of his quotes. And then as well, I'm going to be giving you guys some news in regards to Hector Fort. He has undergone surgery. And as well, I want to be bringing you guys some transfer news. But before I do, make sure to follow me on all my social media platforms. Everything's posted down below in the description. Go over there and check me out. That way you guys will stay up to date with everything that I do on the channel. And as well, the link to become a member is also posted down below. Go over there if you do wish to do so. But guys, as always, let's start with the video. All right, guys, let's get started with the video. Let's talk about Raphinha because he recently spoke out. And as I was saying, he talked about a lot of what he was feeling throughout the season. He talked about his form. He talked about what changed for him this season. And, he starts off by talking about that. He says, I've always worked at the highest level, giving my all in training and matches. Perhaps it was difficult for me to adapt at first. Things might not go the way you want. I struggled a bit in the first season. In my second, I suffered injuries, and I even missed almost a month after being sent off in the first league match. Coming back and regaining the trust of the staff and the coach is more complicated. In the end, it's not just us. In life, having the trust of your leader is important. It gives you more confidence to do your job to the best of your ability. And Raphinha, he's talked about it, time and time again, how at the start, it wasn't really easy for him. He struggled. He wasn't able to adapt. You saw his relationship with Xavi. And, he multiple times he's admitted in the past, he actively thought about leaving the club, about accepting offers, and about just moving on from Barcelona and say, hey, it didn't work out here. But his confidence, his perseverance, it allowed him to have this season, have this amazing season, and, having him vying for the Ballon d'Or, getting close to a treble, and winning titles and everything. And Raphinha, he talks about, his struggle and everything and how he persevered. Raphinha, he talks about his contract extension, and he says, yes, it was my goal since I arrived, to be here for many years, even longer than my old contract. This was on my mind from the moment I arrived, but I knew that to renew, I had to perform and give my best in every game and training session. He talks about why he chose Barcelona, rejected other offers. There were other clubs that were interested in him. He said, yes, this proves it wasn't a lack of level. A player who doesn't have the level isn't going to be sought by the big clubs in the Premier League, and other big clubs were interested in me with very high offers. But I wanted to be here. I followed Barca since I was a kid. I always saw them play. I remember Ronaldinho, Neymar, the history, the titles, the atmosphere, the fans. I always wanted to be here and write my name in the club's history. I visited the city and the stadium before, and that was my wish. And when he talks about, his Barcelona career, he talks about his dream of retiring at Barcelona. He says, yes, I've played for many clubs and I'm 28 years old. After this, I don't know if I'd be able to play for another top level club. My goal is to stay here as long as I can, give my best. I want to be important to the club, to the players, to the coach. When that's no longer possible, I'll think about something else. And I absolutely love how Raphinha has been able to turn this situation around, guys, because he has this attitude of perseverance, of confidence, of grit, of just saying, when the chips are down, let me just trust in my hard work and the talent that I know that I have. And a lot of players, they struggle with that. Not a lot of players are able to replicate, this hard work, this mentality of saying, when the chips are down, I'm going to trust in my ability, and I'm going to do the best I possibly can to succeed. And he's been able to turn it around. As Raphinha said it. He was struggling a lot in in those early seasons at Barcelona, in his first season, in the second due to injuries, and now he's in a situation where he can win the Ballon d'Or. Raphinha, he talks about the Ballon d'Or, and he says, yes, I'm doing well, but it's not something I'm obsessed with. Never in my life did I imagine being there, being among the top 10 in the world. If I'm there, it's because of this season. Confidence takes you to places you never imagined. Last season, I didn't even think about it. And because of the campaign I've had, I'm fighting for an individual award that is the biggest in the world. And being there for me is already a victory. And it's crazy because when you actually just realize how clutch Raphinha has been and how impactful he's been for Barcelona in these biggest of matches, in the games against Bayern, in the games against Madrid, in the games in the Champions League, you think about the game against Benfica, Atalanta, Dortmund, so many games, even Inter. Raphinha has been involved in every single one of those matches, popping up with key goals, key assists, showing up when Barcelona they needed him. And even though a lot of people say he isn't the most talented, he isn't the player that you're just gonna think, oh my god, this is the best player in the world just by pure talent. He shows you how great he is by just showing the determination and the hard work that he puts behind the scenes in order to show up in those key moments. And I absolutely love the effort that Rafinha has been putting in, and he's genuinely become a role model in the team. And a lot of people they're saying, hey, this should be the captain for Barcelona for the next couple of years. Rafinha, he talks about that role in his team, his seniority. And he says, like anyone else, they're there on their own merits. They have quality, but I try to show them that without hard work in football, you won't get anywhere. They have to dedicate themselves to the highest level possible, involved in what the coach asks of them. We teach them that dedication and commitment to the team. With that and their talent, they can be the best in the world in their positions. Many of them will fight for individual awards, and that's absolutely true. I think Rafinha right now, he's going to be taking sort of a role, sort of like the other senior players in the squad. You're talking about your Robert Lewandowski's, your Marc-Andre Ter Stegen, your Inigo Martinez, for example. And these players are going to be role models for everyone else. Players who can pass that wisdom down to the youth, because as much as Pedri, Lamine Yamal, Cubarsí, Balde, et cetera, they're like filled with talent. They're still super young. They still have so much left in their career, and they need to develop into the world of football. And Rafinha, he talks about the future. He talks about Lamine Yamal. He talks about his talent, his ceiling. And Rafinha, he says he has no ceiling. He can go anywhere he wants. I've already spoken to him about it and made it very clear. It's up to him. He has quality, commitment, and a good work ethic. And what he does on the pitch is visible to everyone. For me, he has no ceiling. If he wants to reach the top, he'll do it easily. And I think that's not in question. Lamine Yamal's talent is not in question. It's whether Lamine Yamal is going to be able to put the hard work behind the scenes, whether he's going to be able to, develop into the player that we all know that he's going to be. Because right now, lots of people, they already say he is the best player in the world, Me included. I could say, him alongside Raphinha and Pedri, I would say these are the best players in the world. And whether Lamine Yamal can develop into what we expect him to be, a player who can define a generation, that's going to be up to him. And as Raphinha said, he has absolutely no ceiling. And the future is so bright for Barcelona after renewing him until 2031. What a time to be a Barcelona fan, and super excited for the years to come. But moving on now, guys, I'm going to be talking about some transfer news, because as we've spoken about on the channel before, Deco, the number one priority for him is Luis Diaz. But obviously the transfer fee is the biggest obstacle. If the transfer fee isn't viable, if Barcelona aren't able to go after Luis Diaz, then they're going to be going after Marcus Rashford. But if Marcus Rashford, if that deal is impossible, then Deco, he has identified two other players who can fit in that left wing spot, and that is Gabriel Martinelli and Kingsley Coman. Now, neither of them are, I would particularly say, ideal solutions. Gabriel Martinelli, I think he'd be way too expensive. I think Arsenal would be asking for a humongous price tag for a player who I would say is, just rarely better than Nico Williams, or even I would say at the same level. I would say it would be much better to go after Nico Williams in that circumstance. In regards to Kingsley Coman, a player who's way too injury prone, a player who I would say is past his peak, and is sort of similar of that of a Sané, where if you're not going to be getting this player on low wages, on a free potentially, or on a low transfer fee, and I just think it's going to be a mistake. As much as he's a talented player, he is a player who his best years, they are behind him. And so those are two options that Barcelona they're looking at. I'm surprised that I'm not looking at, for example, of Lookman. I think he'd be a very cost efficient player, a very low cost option, and I would primarily focus on Marcus Rashford because Luis Diaz and Nico Williams, if Barcelona don't have the funds necessarily to go after him and pay those 60 million euros potentially, or 70, 80 for Luis Diaz, then it'd be much more important and smart to go after the low cost option. But the last piece of news that I did want to discuss with you guys today is in regards to Hector Ford, because Hector Ford, he has undergone surgery for a nasal septum. So in his nose, he had some respiratory issues and chronic congestion that has been affecting him throughout the entirety of the season. And his expected recovery time is 4 weeks. It's nothing too serious. It's just a surgery that went successfully for his nose. And, obviously, you never want a player to be out because, what happens if he's called up for, the Spanish U19 teams or any of these international teams, for example. But, thankfully, it's nothing too serious, and he is able to recover very swiftly. But, guys, I want to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comments. What do you guys make of everything that I've discussed in today's video? What do you guys make of those words from Raphinha? Give insight to what his goals are for right now. Him wanting to replicate this season, wanting him to basically retire at Barcelona. He spoke about Lamine Yamal. He talked about his frightening talent. And, as well, I talked about those two options that Barcelona are looking at if Luis Diaz and Marcus Rashford are not available. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Are you guys a fan of any of them? But I want to hear everything down below. And as always, guys, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll see you guys all in the next video. Peace out, guys.